Welcome to Dead Headspace. You can find us on Spotify, Stitcher, iHeartRadio, Ghana, and all other major platforms, including Alexa. All you have to do is tell Alexa to play Dead Headspace podcast for the latest episode every Monday and Thursday. I'm your host, Patrick Gar McDonough, joined by my co-host, Brennan LaFaro. Say hi, Brennan.
Hey, everybody.
And our guest host, Cassie Daley. Say hi, Cassie.
Hello.
And today we are talking to the author, Hailey Piper. Hi, Hailey.
Hi, everyone.
So, Hailey, the first question I want to ask you is what got you into horror?
I feel like I've always been into horror ever since I was a little kid, and my dad brought home a movie that he thought was one thing on a blank VHS that turned out to be something else. He thought it was Trolls, and it was probably, I don't know if you've heard of this movie, The Unnameable, based on a Lovecraft story.
No.
It is very rated R. I mean, it's before that too with Godzilla and stuff, but that was like the first taste of like, oh, this is what movies can be.
And you were just sold.
Oh yeah, totally. Like, I didn't sleep that night, but you know, we didn't get to watch the whole movie because he turned the tape on in the VCR. He went to go take a shower. He comes back, and we're just my younger sister and I are just terrified. So yeah, I didn't see the rest of it until I was like 20, I think, and it was terrible. Like the whole movie was so schlocky, and I was like, how was I ever scared of this? But yeah, and then just like always just anything with monsters. In fact, I refused to see stuff that didn't have like dinosaurs or monsters or things for a while.
It's just not cool enough.
It just wasn't that interesting. I mean, but which is funny because but just like in books, it was just like Goosebumps was a big thing. Anything, honestly, anything I could get my hands on. Anytime we go to the video store or the rental place, it would just be like I'd rent out the Universal monster movies, as many like, Harryhausen films as I could get. Just anything I could get my hands on.
Do you have a favorite Universal monster?
Oh, the creature from the Black Lagoon has always been my favorite, even when I was little.
That's funny.
He's such a neat creature, and he's not like any of the other things. He's just, he doesn't come from a book or older folklore. I mean, unless you count mermaids with him, but he also is just kind of a tragic, because he's just living his life out there.
That's funny. I would have gone with the same one, and almost for similar reasons. I like how, if you hold that up to, Frankenstein, Wolfman, and The Lot, that seems like the one that saturates the market the least, that we know the least about, and for that reason, I find it intriguing.
Yeah, definitely.
What about you, Cassie? Do you have a favorite Universal monster?
Look, I'm really stereotypical, and the 16-year-old goth girl in me is very strong, so I'm going to have to say that Dracula is my favorite, especially, like, Bela Lugosi. Like, so good. I'm not going to give the numbers, but my name on, like, Blizzard for, like, playing WoW and stuff is Lugosi, just because I love him so much.
So, Patrick, we obviously want to know your favorite monster, too.
Totally.
Well, I like the original Wolfman. It's just a fun movie. I enjoy those. I also this doesn't really answer that question because I just answered it, but I'm also a big fan of Abbott and Costello when they meet, different Universal monsters. I just like silly things, I guess.
That's a fun movie, though.
Yeah.
Well, before we completely leave the realm of, what got you into horror, you said you started out with Goosebumps, but what were some of the first slightly older than Goosebumps books that really caught your attention?
I don't know if it counts, but Jurassic Park. I got, after the movie came out, my 8th birthday hit, and I got the novel and I started reading that. And then like Congo and the Andromeda Strain. I didn't understand the science in them. I just liked the stuff that was happening in them. But then my mother was a big Dean Koontz fan, and she had the books in her bedroom, and I looked at them. I didn't touch them because I knew I wasn't supposed to read them until the point where I did touch them, and I picked up Mr. Murder, and I was reading Dean Koontz at the same time I was reading Goosebumps, and there was no like difference to me. Like, I just kind of expected horrible stuff to happen either way, but eventually I kind of stopped reading the Goosebumps books and just kind of was reading stuff like Intensity and things like that.
Were you into the Jurassic Park movie as well?
Oh yeah, big time. I mean, all this stuff was happening at the same time. Just like, I'm reading Goosebumps, I'm reading Dean Koontz, I'm playing with Jurassic Park toys, eagerly anticipating the VHS for Jurassic Park come out, because it's staying in theaters so long. It took like a year or so for the VHS to come out.
I love that. I used to play with Jurassic Park toys all the time. Those Ninja Turtles and Star Wars. Brendan, you seem like you're kind of the same. Actually, Cassie, I would be willing to bet that you're probably.
I was gonna say, why not me? Me too. I had toys.
I always think that you're so much younger than me, but then I'm like, we're the same age. I don't know. I just assumed, the worst.
With the toys, they stick around in the toy stores. I mean, like when Aliens was 1986, but when I was like mid 90s, I was like 10, and they still had Aliens toys in our local stores. Like, we lived in a tiny town. If that stuff didn't get off the shelf, it just stayed on the shelf. So if I saved up enough money, I could get some weird looking thing that I didn't know what it was because I couldn't watch Alien yet. But...
Did you guys have a KB Toys? Is that I really don't know if that's the national toy chain.
It's a town over. We were a bit too small of a town for that.
Because that was the store where I always found all the fun stuff, all the action figures you guys are talking about. Brennan, I'm not really sure how to segue from this, man. So why don't you?
It has really nothing to do with anything we're talking about. But I actually worked in a KB Toys when I was probably in my early 20s, and it was just as much fun walking around the store straightening stuff in my early 20s as it was at 10 or 12 years old.
Jealous.
Yeah, no, I mean, it was an awful job because there's customers, but other than that, the toys were wonderful.
Now, question: did you ever fight over a toy, like a new toy, with a kid, like a customer? Like, that's mine.
No, that's a strange thing to ask somebody in their 20s, I'm afraid.
Very strange question.
Is that where you're ending it there?
Yeah, that's where I'm ending it. I'm sorry. I thought Brennan had more. My apologies.
No, okay. I have a question. So I feel like me in particular, so because of like the podcast and everything, I'm really curious, and I feel like people who are listening to this would expect me to ask this question, Hailey, but are there any specific Goosebump books that stand out to you as like really, really good, or even like if you read like those point horror things, or just anything that you remember from like YA books that you really liked that were horror-y?
See, I thought you were about to ask if I'd read any Pike books, and I'd unfortunately have to say no.
That's okay. There's always time. And if you ever want to come hang out with us, you're welcome to. Just a random plug for myself.
That's okay. That's okay. You're friends with us. So, yeah,
let's see. I haven't read them since I was 10, I don't think. I remember that the first one, I can't remember the name, Welcome to Dead House, I think it might have been called.
Yeah.
Oh, that was the only one that really scared me, was the first one. But I liked The Haunted Mask, was really good.
They did like TV or movie adaptations of some of them too.
Yeah, I didn't really watch the show. At that point, the TV was kind of usually changed to like playing Nintendo at that point.
That's fair.
There's one, it's mostly early ones because I kind of only got to a certain point before I stopped reading them, but like Monster Blood was one I liked also. That's what I can think of.
Did you, so you mentioned Nintendo, do you play like current video games? Like, are there some horror video games that you like, or did it kind of stop with like Nintendo stuff early on?
I haven't been playing games as much lately, just as in like the last few months. But yeah, there are horror games of like, I mean, Resident Evil was kind of the deciding point between whether I wanted a Nintendo 64 or a PlayStation back in the day. I played like Silent Hill 2. I know some people would argue I consider like Bloodborne and Dark Souls to be horror games.
Yeah.
They definitely make me freak out.
They're hard too.
BioShock, that kind of stuff.
We love BioShock here. Well, Brennan doesn't play a lot of video games, but Pat does.
Brennan doesn't know what a BioShock is, but
well, it deserves all the attention in film adaptations or HBO, because that is just amazing.
I don't think they do a good job, honestly. I think so much of what makes the subtext and the narrative strength of the first BioShock is really the fact that you are the player. I think Infinite, BioShock Infinite, is it Infinite or Infinity? That one would probably make a decent movie. I can't imagine they would do a good job with the first one though.
I feel like they would be pretty though, even if it was bad. Like it
That's
would be
true.
so beautiful.
That is true. Absolutely, definitely.
I've changed my mind thanks to you, Hailey. Holy crap, I've never thought of that.
I don't want to spoil stuff for the game, but it's so, like, if you know the story, it's so integral that you are playing it.
Yeah.
Like, it says so much about being somebody who plays video games.
That's a good point. Now, can we move on to books, or are you two, Brennan and Cassie, not ready yet?
No, I'm good.
Because I just want to jump straight to the Worm and his Kings, and we can talk about all the other books after. If you guys... Okay, I'll take that as a go ahead and shut up.
Go ahead, Pat.
Go ahead, you're good.
All right.
Absence of argument, move forward.
To sum it up, holy shit, you made a cosmic horror, and this is what basically I'm paraphrasing myself. I said to Cassie and Brennan after I finished it, I said, she wrote a cosmic horror and said, this is my subgenre now. Like, you just nailed it. And it was particularly the last few pages, not to take anything away from the entire book. It's a good book, but the last few pages, you just, that's what cosmic horror is. It's just like, holy shit, we don't matter. Maybe I got that completely wrong.
I'm hoping that's not all that I'm saying there, but
no.
Yeah.
No, there's
without
a lot
spoiling
to
anything.
I don't want to spoil anything. That's why I'm just trying to keep it vague.
Yeah. It's a hard book to talk about, and I've said this to people before. I like end revelations and, obviously like conclusion of events, but I like middle. I like earlier twists. If there's going to be a twist in situations, I want it to be earlier in the book so you can see the ramifications. I'm not a huge fan of twist end, at least in my work, doing a twist ending. I want there to be time for consequences.
Yeah, you know what? That's a good point, to see how the characters would react. Well, you did a good job with that. Yeah, so just to clear the air with my comment about the ending, I don't want to ruin it. It's not even out yet, so that's pretty.
Yeah, I really want to avoid getting into too much stuff.
Yeah.
Book stuff.
So I'm not sure where I'm sorry to say this. I'm not sure where we take it from there, but Brennan and Cassie, one of you have to save me right now.
Cassie, go right on ahead.
No, we're both like, you're in distress. Here we are.
All right.
I got the SOS sign.
If it's cool, I'll jump in. So, yeah. Hailey, you are absolutely right. It is so hard to describe a novella, especially one around that 114-page mark, without giving anything away that's kind of integral and is going to make, for the reader's experience. And, as we're recording this, it is the day before Halloween. The book hits in a little over 2 weeks. So I'm going to kind of put this at your doorstep. I wonder if you could give us a spoiler-free synopsis.
Yeah. I mean, I think that chiefly what's going on is it is hard. the funny thing is it's not too much different in length than Benny Rose. It's just adjusted a little differently. But Benny Rose is a little easier to describe because you've got that whole second act where, I mean, things happen within it and stuff develops. But if you say it's the girls are running from Benny, then that's without spoiling anything, you're telling somebody what's going on in the book. This one's a little harder because Monique encounters something new pretty much every chapter. It's 1990 New York. Monique is a young homeless woman who's looking for her girlfriend Donna, who's been missing for 3 months, and her trail is following rumors of what's essentially an urban legend that's been kidnapping women off the street. And so her trail takes her underground and into essentially this underworld that nobody on the surface knows about, where there's a cult that worships I don't know how you describe a god of sorts. And just she's not the only one who's looking for somebody. And there's interesting characters and things and creatures, and she's just trying to find the woman she loves. I don't know if I did. I don't even know if I did a good job describing what's going on with the book.
I thought you did an excellent job.
Yeah.
I don't like to be the one who does it because I don't know what, an author would draw the line at as this is a spoiler versus this is just kind of what you can know going in, just so you kind of, what you're walking into, basically.
Yeah. I mean,
Cassie,
I don't think there's like spoilers up to like the end of chapter 5, probably. I mean, or 4, I guess. I don't honestly have a physical copy on hand, so I can't be like, oh, this chapter, yeah, okay, that's where you draw the line.
So without saying anything that spoils it, what I really liked about this is that I personally don't read or watch a lot of what's considered cosmic horror. And it's not just because I don't like it. It's just I just haven't. Like, I don't know. I tend to go more toward like slashers and like hauntings and things like that. So when I got this and when I saw that it was posted to get like an advanced copy of it, I saw that it was your name, obviously. And I was like, yes, sign me up for this. I want it. I don't even care. I'm just so excited. And then I read the back and I was like, okay, this sounds really cool. And then I read it. And like, after I finished it, I was like, holy crap. Like, this is so much more like than even the back says. So that's why I totally understand where you're like, I don't know how to give this a really easy summary, because there's just so much in it that happens. And I think it's really cool that, without saying anything that you didn't already say, you manage to portray characters in different situations in different positions in life that I don't think are regularly portrayed in books and media and things like that. And I really appreciated that. I'm not just that, Monique was a homeless woman, but, just the other things to it. And I really, really liked that. And I liked how much I felt like I grew with her as the book went on, even though it's so short. So I loved it so much. Everybody should read it when it comes out, and please buy it.
Thank you. Yeah, on the subject of character position, if you look at the classic, I want to use that word, like older cosmic horror stories, a lot of the characters would be, there's a character Abraham mentioned early in The Worm and His Kings, and that would be kind of what you usually have as the protagonist of the older cosmic horror stories. And I didn't want to go that route. I didn't want to look at things through that lens.
Mm-hmm.
I wanted it to be someone who's coming into this and is like, I don't know what the hell this is.
Yeah. It was like a very unique perspective, I think, that I haven't read before. And I think a lot of people who are more experienced in the genre will also not have read or, seen before.
I didn't know how to word what you just said, Cassie, without giving things away. So I appreciate you saying that. And then to echo what Cassie said, I appreciate the perspective too, because I haven't read that before, and I was like, wow, I want more of this. More by you, more by other authors. It'd be really awesome to get more of that.
We're just throwing a bunch of compliments. They're
Yeah,
not
I'm
even really
just like,
questions at them. I know. Just how
Yeah,
many
so
times can I say thank you?
I'm gonna pile one more on, and then I have an actual question. But I kind of liked the idea. We talked about how Monique is experiencing all of this, and kind of just as bewildered by it as the reader is. And I like that we were very eased into it. It wasn't like, she hit a certain level in the tunnel and boom, she's in Pan's Labyrinth. It was, one little thing off at a time, and, eventually we end up with with a fair bit of, I'm going to go with, I guess, otherworldly stuff, and, it doesn't just all come crashing down on us. It all makes sense the way that the elements are introduced. So my question is, out of all the stuff I've read by you, the novellas, the short stories, this is the first thing I've read by you that would fall into that, cosmic genre label. And I would definitely echo Patrick saying it fits that bill very nicely. So is this your first foray writing in cosmic, or just the first one that I'm seeing?
It's the first one you're seeing, but I haven't done much of that. In an article I wrote last year, I kind of mentioned that I wasn't really engaging with it that much as a writer. I love reading it. Not necessarily like as far back as some people are big fans of. It's more recent authors like Caitlin Kiernan, Brian Hodge. There are so many, honestly. I should have written a list, but I do love reading it. I haven't really engaged much in writing it, but I had tried this as a short story first, and it didn't work. It was different characters with the same lore, and it just it didn't feel right. It wasn't the right approach, and I even was looking as like with the same ending in mind, and then I got to not very far. I got to about a third of the way through writing the novella, and I was like, that's not how things would go for Monique. That's different. But my first, I think I've written a lot of short stories, so if I'm wrong, forgive me. I believe my first one was a short. There was a flash fic. There is an old lady who swallows the stars. In anthology Neon Horror, which is all LGBTQIA creators. I believe that's that, and then The Worm and His Kings. And I may have written something else since then, another short story, but I don't have a list in front of me.
Speaking of your short stories, this actually is probably my best segue of the night, but Worst Laid Plans, that was edited by Samantha Koyesnik. I liked your story, and it was just a fun read. And I'm wondering, did you both start talking about this book at that point, or when did you and Sam start talking about it?
At what point do you mean?
Oh, I'm sorry. So I guess I could have worded it a lot better. When did you and Sam start talking about this book? Was it the open call or?
Yeah, I submitted it during the open call in April.
Okay.
So I don't remember the exact chronology of things. I trying to remember, like March feels like an eternity ago.
Yeah.
I think March was the open call for Worst Laid Plans, if I'm not mistaken. And I think April 1st was, or mid-April was the deadline for Worst Laid Plans. I sent in, hold on, let me get my bearings straight. Yeah, March was the open call for that, so I'd submitted on Kindly Girls during that time. And then during April, I submitted Worm and His Kings to the open call for Off Limits Press. In July we made the announcement. So I don't remember whether Unkindly Girls was announced as part of Worst Laid Plans before I submitted Wormness Kings or after. It's kind of fuzzy at that point. There was a lot going on in April and May, as you guys probably remember.
This has been a year.
It really, oh my God.
As a follow-up to that, how has working with Off Limits been, Hailey?
It's been wonderful. Sam has been really communicative and supportive. We've had, the same ideas with how we want to approach things. Sam has just been fantastic.
And I feel like the cover, I know that she was big on commissioning covers and getting the author's input on it. I feel like the cover that was it CV Hunt that did that?
Yes. We had a different situation because I think when Laurel Hightower had Crossroads, when they were going through the cover art, there was kind of like, look at this, look at this, look at this. I think Sam had a more immediate idea of what the Wormness Kings cover should be, because she kind of just she sent it to me and I was just like, oh my God, that's perfect.
It is very appropriate for the book. I love it. God, I want to say why I love it, but I'm gonna feel like I'm ruining it.
Will you stop?
Just quit trying to spoil it. Just end with, I want people to read this.
Someone mute Pat.
I think it embodies it without. It doesn't have to get into the depths of it to really describe, because if you look at the cover, it is what the book is. If that silhouette is Monique, just in looking down into the tunnel, and just it is pure blackness there. It's like it's completely unknown. There's just, and that's what the book is. Like, you don't know where she's going at each step, as she meets, more new characters and situations at each chapter. I think the editor, Carmen Wells, described it as almost a Wonderland type of situation, just, in a cosmic horror way. And one of the things that was important to me is that, in chapter 2, she comes up briefly from the subway and she's at the building and she's looking down, and there's this sense that, she got a lucky break. If she goes down again, she's not going to come back up. And each new turn is descending. The next step they find, going down. The next steps after that, going down. Like, each step is just going deeper and deeper. There isn't an ascension. So I probably went way too far with that, but the cover, that's what the cover, I think, says to me, at least.
I like that.
Yeah, I didn't even think of the correlation with Alice in Wonderland, which I'm a huge fan of, and that makes complete sense. But I don't know if anyone's going to ask this, so I just got to ask, the two blurbs by A.C. Wise and Mary San Giovanni, how did that come about? Because that's awesome. It's really killer that those two are the ones that blurbed your book.
I'm enormously appreciative of both of them for taking the time to do that, because I know both of them are extremely busy. Sam had asked Mary, and I asked A.C. Wise. We each knew the person we were talking to.
Okay.
I don't know if it's any more complicated than that. We didn't feel like we needed a slew of blurbs. So that made it a lot simpler.
Yeah, I mean,
unfortunately, it's not really complicated or interesting story there.
No, that's fine. Two's, plenty, and they're both, for anyone that reads a lot, they should know those two names. It's really awesome. Now, for Worst Laid Plans, that was the first time you've worked with Sam in any capacity, wasn't it?
Yes. Now that you've said that does jog my memory a bit about the timeline. I believe that we had already been working on Worst Laid Plans by the time that I submitted to the open call for Off Limits, because not to dig up drama from earlier this year, at least for me, but a publisher that I was going to publish a novel with, that I'm no longer publishing a novel with, with that being a situation, I kind of was a little hesitant I didn't want to approach people I haven't really worked with, at least at the moment. in some capacity. So once Sam and I were working together on Worst Laid Plans, I was like, okay, she's good. She knows what she's doing, and like we'd talked a little over social media, but like I needed to see where the editing phase of that was, and it's like, okay, she understands this stuff, because I've worked, not to name names, a long time. These aren't anybody any of us know, but just there have been a couple places where it's just like they tried to turn my story into a YA story, and I don't write YA, and the story had this ghost that was like, it was these guys wanted to have sex with this ghost, and it was just like, how are you going to turn this into a YA story? So that didn't happen, but I'm always kind of wary, but especially with what happened with that other publisher earlier this year, I was very concerned about stuff, and I just wanted to know what I was getting into. It's like, okay, so she's good, and like I didn't even know to what extent. Like Sam has been incredible. So just if anyone's listening to that, who's listening to this and is thinking about submitting to the anthology call that I think closes in a day, and it's just a little late to start writing a story, but or the open call that starts the release date for the Worminous Kings, definitely Off Limits Press is a good place to go.
I've heard nothing.
Is a spectacular place to go, I should say.
Yeah, I've heard nothing but amazing things with Sam. I've been talking to her since I first saw her cover with True Crime, and she's just, for me anyway, she came out left field, and she is kicking ass in every way. Writer, as a editor, and as a publisher.
Yeah.
I don't even know what to expect with the upcoming book novellas, but I'm excited for them. I mean, you and Laurel are the first two to come out of her press, and it seems like a press that's gonna be around for a while.
She's definitely she's putting all the attention that it needs. There are definitely, I've seen presses kind of come and go over the last couple of years, because the people in charge kind of thought it was going to be easy, and I mean, I guess on the outside sometimes it may seem that way, but it's not, and it's just, she has incredible dedication.
Yeah, it's very clear that her heart's in this, and that's what's important. She'll fight for her authors, and she picks very wisely. I mean, Carmen did a really good job. I don't know much about her, but I mean, her work was stellar. Cassie and Brennan, you got anything else on this particular topic that you would like to jump in on?
Wait, on the topic of the book in general, or?
It's just a vague question. I don't know where you guys.
He just wants us to help him.
Okay, no, so I do kind of have a question. So I'm not sure actually I don't know if this is even a good question or if it's easy to answer or what. But so when I was reading The Worminous Kings, I read it actually. So I try to wait, if I'm doing a podcast, to read it right before. So I read it earlier today. And when I finished it, obviously I've read the other books that you've put out too, the other novellas, and it felt so different to me. And like, I don't know. I don't want to say different because I could tell that it was you writing it. Like, you have this voice that I can see in all of these books, but at the same time, it was also maybe kind of like more lyrical, or like it was so pretty, and there were so many lines in it that just sounded really, really pretty. So my question, is there something different that went into the process, or was your process for this one like different, or was it more complicated, or did you just do the same thing for all of them? And this one to me just sounds different. I know I'm great at wording things just like that.
No, that's a good question. I'm not sure.
Burn.
It definitely took longer than other things. I was surprised for how it's not very much different from Benny Rose in length, but it is in how long it took to write. Benny Rose, I wrote the rough draft in about 5 days, and did all the editing and revisions over the next 12 days.
Oh my gosh.
That one really that one just snapped together. This took months. And I had points where I brought it to my wife, Jay, and she told me, this is good, this is bad, this is good, this is bad. And I would just take it back to the drawing board and just go at it again and at it again. This one fought me, is what I guess the best way I can put it. And I think that if anything beautiful came of it is because I challenged myself with this one. I find cosmic horror hard to approach. When I read it, I'm always stunned by the imagination of the writers, and so this was hard. And but I think that was good, because I kind of look to other some horror writers. They have a thing, if that makes sense. Like they have a subgenre or two that they are like glued to. Like if you want to, if you say, like, if somebody's like, hey, no, backwards. If somebody says that writer's name, like, okay, I'm going to get this kind of thing and this kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know what mine is for that. I just kind of wanted to hit I just want to keep trying out the different subgenres. So, with T-Pong, that was like, possessions, exorcism story. Invitation to Darkness with Gothic. Benny Rose was a slasher. This is cosmic horror, and then next year Rooster Republic will be putting out my body horror novel, and I don't know where I'm going from there exactly. But it's just like I want to keep diving into different things, and that means not staying in a comfort zone. Because if I just want to stay in a comfort zone, I could just keep writing stuff like Benny Rose, where it's a coming of age thing. Because I love coming of age horror. I love it so much, but sometimes you just don't feel like writing teenagers. So I don't know if I answered your question really. I think it really just was because in knowing that this was not my wheelhouse, I had to fight it a bit, and it fought me, and this is what came out of that.
I mean, I think that's pretty cool though, and it does answer my question. And I think it's neat that with each one, it's like something different. So you're keeping people, like your readers, even the people who, like me, are huge fans and will buy anything, on our toes. Like, because we're like, I don't know what to expect. You can tell me this is cosmic horror, but it's specific Hailey Piper cosmic horror. So it's still going to be something different and unique to other things that we would be reading, And I like that. And I like that it's unique for you too. So it's not just a new thing for us. It's each one for you is like, oh, I'm trying something out and let's see how this goes. And I mean, speaking for myself, I think you're nailing it. So congratulations, because everyone that I read has been great.
I'm hoping that I can keep approaching new things, and even if there's something that's hard for me, keep presenting something different, presenting a different perspective on it. Especially like as I'm writing short fiction, you kind of have to be willing to just jump at things when you're doing a lot of short fiction. But there's something so like, okay, well, I want to challenge myself, but like sometimes you have to recognize you're not ready for that particular, like, what's a good example? I just finished Mongrels by Stephen Graham Jones this week. And I'm like, let's say I wanted to write a werewolf book. I wouldn't know how to follow that up. That knocked it out of the park. So I don't know what the word is, completely. But I'm just like, yeah, maybe I'd like to approach werewolves someday, but I don't know what to do, so I'm not going to do that right now.
I like that too, because it's like you liked it so much and it was so well done that you're like, I want to do this, but I know I don't know how, but it's so cool. Like I really want this.
I was just stunned. I was just like, okay, one day, but no, like you just take your crown, just keep it for now.
I'm gonna keep my eye out in the future for a werewolf novel from you.
That kind of just shows how good of a writer you are, though, because you just said something that's very important for any new listeners that are also new writers. Go out of your comfort zone, do whatever research you have to, too, if it's a new subject that you got to figure a few things out. But, I mean, you nailed it. You did a good job.
Thanks. Yeah, I'm hoping that people who are like longtime readers of cosmic horror will find something new. It was gratifying to see it on that list Um, I'm gonna sound so bad not knowing what the website was off the top of my head. I got nervous. There were a couple lists where it's gotten put up there as cosmic horror to check out, alongside books that I've enjoyed, like The Ballad of Black Tom, and I'm just like, oh my God. So it's been gratifying.
I saw at least one list that probably you reposted. And unfortunately, I can't think of what publication put out the list either.
So bad.
But thank you to the publication.
Yeah.
Yeah, I really appreciate it. My lack of being able to remember is not due to being ungrateful for that. It's just because it's been a week.
Yeah, it's been a year. Honestly, there's a lot in our heads.
Yeah.
So Hailey, I want to talk a little bit about your short fiction. Specifically, something I've seen you talk about a few times is a really positive spin on submitting and, seeing some pieces go through and some pieces get kicked back. You talk about collecting rejections. I wonder if you could tell us a little bit more about that.
Oh, sure. I love talking about that. Yeah, I have a different philosophy with rejections than is usually what I'm presented with. I think a lot of people, I can't guess what's in somebody's head. I can only go by what they're saying. But what is being presented is kind of this adversarial relation, or in different ways. Sometimes it's that looking at the rejection as being a rejection. It's not just a rejection of the story, it's a rejection of you. And that's just not the case. But also just when I say like, yeah, I take rejection as part of the process, and people are like, yeah, sometimes you just got to shrug it off. And it's just like, no, that's not what I mean. I mean, you need to accept your rejection, because it is just going to happen. Unless a sub call goes very badly, they can't take everything, including all the things they love. I definitely had that on the rare occasion that they have the time to do personal feedback. It's just like, we like this, we can't take everything. It's just the truth of it. But even regardless of that, though, I think that it is a matter of looking at it as a cycle. If you're going to get acceptances, you're going to get rejections. They come hand in hand. And that's why it's so important to just go forward with it, because your rejections are going to have to outnumber your acceptances. It's just a simple fact of numbers. And so when I look at them as that way, it doesn't become it doesn't stay an adversarial relationship. It becomes a goal. I have to get 100 rejections a year. I have to. That is the goal. I get acceptances along the way, but I have to get those rejections.
Holy shit, that's a lot.
Well, I'm almost there this year. I'm kind of getting nervous because it's getting late in the year, so I'm gonna keep. But right now, I've written 2 books this year, and so right now I'm devoting the rest of the year to short fiction. So we'll see what happens.
Nice.
But yeah, that's how I look at it, and I think Cassie really worded it perfectly after I was the last time I mentioned it on Twitter, because she said it kind of turns the rejection stuff into a game. And I was like, that's a perfect attitude to look at, because you don't always win a game. And like, we don't play games to always win. That's not the purpose. Now, obviously, there's more to it than that, but the numbers element of it does kind of become that way. And I think that's the healthiest way to look at it, in my opinion.
I think so too. And it like, me personally, when you told me that for the first time, I remember, so for anybody who doesn't know, I've gone to Hailey like a million times asking for advice and asking questions on how, like, everything from how books work to how publishing works to like anything. And she's been so nice and so like helpful and given advice and just answered everything like very graciously. And that was one of the pieces of advice that she gave me, was the thing about the rejections and how if you're aiming for them, then they can't really hurt you. And that was the single best advice I've gotten regarding submitting to places. And that is the reason that like I've decided to do it, and that I've been brave enough to do it and risk the rejections, because I got to get them. Everybody gets them. Like, it's going to happen, but maybe there will be some good things. And then if not, hey, I've reached a rejection goal. So there's a good thing. I made a good thing for myself out of the bad things.
Absolutely how I look at it is absolutely right. If I didn't apply that way, I would have never gotten my first acceptance, and I wouldn't have sold all the stories after that or any of the books after that. I just wouldn't have tried. So I really think I think the healthiest thing to do is to adjust that mindset and just look at it as like, this is a good thing because it means that I'm trying.
Yeah, no, that definitely is a good thing. Doesn't matter how good you are. I've heard from quite a few writers that even Stephen King, he gets more rejections than we would know about. They don't accept everything he writes because he's Stephen King. So, if the top writers are getting rejected, we're going to get rejected easily.
Nothing else, Pat?
No, that's all
Okay.
I had. I don't know
All
why
right.
I keep leaving us on cliffhangers. I apologize. Sorry
That's
for being
okay.
so droning that I just kill the room.
So Hailey, on the same topic, I kind of wanted to talk about. I feel, you said you have to submit, a certain quota so that you hit that rejections 100 a year, which is a wild number, by the way. But it seems like maybe you've had trouble with that this year because your stuff keeps getting in like absolutely everywhere. It's funny because every once in a while I'll see like, an anthology that I've never heard of and you're announcing a story in it, and then it just gets dogpiled by like all of these other authors, and it's almost like you're a trendsetter. But I wanted to talk about how prolific you are in short fiction, and I wanted to kind of ask what your process is, how often, and how, basically on average, how long it takes you to churn out a story. And I was really taken aback by the fact that you knocked out the first draft of Benny Rose in like 5 days. Now I'm very interested to hear
That's
how long each
amazing.
story takes you on average.
But that's like, that was such an anomaly. And like, I was on Ink Heist earlier this year, and I kept accidentally referring to writing Benny Rose as easy. And the thing is, like, saying like, okay, I wrote the rough draft in 5 days. That doesn't account for the 8 months of struggling to get this concept to work. Notes and things that happened before that. Like, I had the idea before, and I was just trying to think, like, it might have been longer than 8 months. It was a while, but it was, it doesn't take into account all of that. I don't know what the right analogy would be, but just kind of like all the learning that was done through writing those short stories before then. All the notes that were just like, oh, this is stupid. Oh, this isn't going to work. How do I do this? And then when the Rewind or Die call went out, like, something about the description of what kind of stories they were looking for clicked. And I was just like, oh, set it in the 80s. And it wasn't like that was enough to solve all the problems, but it unlocked my brain so I could figure out the rest. And I just hit the ground running and just went through it. It honestly, as far as I can't really say that each story takes the same amount of time. One story that was announced recently, it took me about 4 hours total from doing the rough draft to doing the final revisions.
Wow. Wow.
But another story that was recently sold, it took me 5 weeks. And that's not because of their length difference. It's because of just how much of a challenge was the type of story. How new was some of the material for me? What was the tone? Because if it's a certain kind of tone, it may take me a little longer to work at or try to perfect. It can depend on character voice. One of my most popular short stories is Feast for Small Pieces. That took me an afternoon. But I've had ones, but Unkindly Girls for Worst Laid Plans, that took me 3 weeks. It's those stories aren't that different in length, but it's just a matter of the kind of material. Feast for Small Pieces began as a rant that my wife then told me, go write that down right now. And then it just ballooned into a story. Unkindly Girls was, I mean, it's not subject matter that I often approach. In fact, I don't really care to, but in this particular instance, this was the story that was speaking to me. And so it's weird because I think probably more people have read that than a lot of my other short stories. And I'm like, I hope they're not thinking that that's the kind of thing they're always going to be seeing. I typically like my monsters and weird shit, and not usually about a parental figure of that nature. As far as being prolific goes, though, I know it's kind of like been a thing that gets bandied about. It's like, well, you don't have to write every day. It's like, of course you don't. Everyone should follow their own process. Everyone's process works differently. I was talking to a friend last week. She had kind of realized that she works in bursts. That's how she is. She works in a burst, and then she goes into kind of a lower period where she's she's resting, and then she does another burst. I'm a write every day kind of person. I love writing. I write stories just for fun a lot of the time. Like, people will never see them. They go immediately in the trunk. They don't even get sent out. They're just for me to play with an idea or figure something out or just test something or just to have fun, because I think writing is fun. So yeah, I usually write at least a couple hours, unless it's a rough day or I shouldn't say rough day. If suddenly there's a lot of things I have to do in the morning, I can't do it, but I usually write for a couple hours each day. And that doesn't even necessarily have to be like I'm sitting there writing new material. It can be editing, revising, like all those things are part of writing. So I consider them writing, and that's all stuff that's, gearing your brain to treat this as important. And I read a lot too. And honestly, I think that's one of the biggest, most helpful things for me. I've seen some writers say, I don't have time to read. It's like, you don't have time to write. Like, I try to read at least a book a week. I can't always make it, but I do read short stories and stuff. And really just your brain is affected by how you treat it. And if I'm treating it to books, then I feel it's getting stronger.
That's a great point. Yeah, that is something that I'm actually very much so looking towards with my kid. I want him to read anything. I don't care. Hope it's hard, but I don't care. Now, are you a type of writer that will only write at a certain time, or it must be at, say, your writing desk, or are you really just kind of... I don't believe you answered this, so forgive me if
Sorry, go ahead. I'm interrupting you.
Oh, no problem. Or are you just kind of, if it's gonna be at the living room, on the living room couch or wherever? How are you when it comes to that?
Let's see. Well, I'm definitely a routine-oriented writer. I like to. Mornings are my most awake point. I'll be up at 4:30 and just kind of hop on the computer and get started.
Oh, wow.
4:30.
It's been later. Yeah, I've gotten up and I'm like, Cassie, why is she still
I
posting
know.
things on Instagram?
I haven't gone to bed yet.
Yeah. And because that's like 1:30 your time.
Yeah, it's so late.
But yeah, so I'm usually up. I mean, it's been later lately for whatever reason. I'm sure that's going to get messed up by daylight savings in a couple days. But yeah, I'm usually up and at my desk and just getting started on whatever I have to do that day, whether it's, start writing a new draft or writing a second draft or revising stuff. As far as like writing otherwise, there have been times where I've had to, because something strikes, I just jump in there. Those are pretty rare, but I will hop on in an afternoon or evening if the I kind of just follow what my brain tells me to do. If the
Yeah.
story necessitates, but that's very rare. That's like once in a month that would happen. Usually what's more common for me is that, if I'm hanging out with Jay, over on the couch or whatever, I'll have my notebook next to me, so if something occurs to me, I can jot it down. And a lot of that stuff's gonna be trash. A lot of it's just gonna sit in a folder or a file on my computer and never get used. But you don't know that until later. And a lot
That's
of times a single line of dialogue has created an entire story or a new character for a book or something. It's best to keep it because you never know.
Yes, I love that. I too carry many notebooks because it's true. It's like a filter, like what's the worst that'll happen? It'll just stay there. No one will see it. But the best that'll
Right.
happen is, like you just said, it will be the seed to a giant tree of a story.
John Langan had a really good approach to that. He was saying that if you teach your brain to reject ideas, then it's eventually going to stop bringing them to you.
Hmm.
So it's better to just treat each of those things as a possibility.
That's very good advice. Brennan or Cassie, do either one of you do anything like that similar as far as notebooks go?
I just have like a Google Docs file where I write down like a bunch of random stuff that I think is a good idea. And a lot of the time, honestly, I'll just kind of yell stuff at Rich and and I do it in this way too. So he never knows if I'm being serious or if I'm like talking about a tragic incident in my past or something. So like I'll just start and I'll be like, what about this one time that this happened? And he's like, did that really happen to you? And I'm like, no, like I still have my arm, or whatever horrible thing happened in the story. I'm like, that's definitely not me. Like, and he's like, that sounded so real. And I'm like, okay, would that be a good story though? And so he'll tell me like yes or no. And he's also really helpful he'll tell me if it's stupid. Like he won't be rude, but he'll be like, I don't really think you're paying attention to this huge hole here. And I'm like, oh God, you're right. I'm not. I missed that. So he's kind of my notepad for that. But I do, like Hailey says, I just spit all of my ideas, like no matter how small or anything. I'm like, what about this? Have you ever heard of this? Is this a thing?
What's great is like when I'm driving with my wife, she knows when I'm about to like get an idea because I just got, I guess, this look on me. So I'm like, hey, here's my phone. Type that, like, jot this down. Thank God she like is totally cool with me being mainly a horror writer because I don't know, like the shit that all of us think about, it's not it's not normal, but we write it down for fun. I mean, normal's subjective, but I don't know. You have to have a good support system too. And it sounds like Jay's like great. And if you don't want to answer this, is fine. I only got one question about her. Is she your first reader?
There was a time when we did things that way, but I kind of realized that when I would only really ask her to read something if I had concerns about it. And so once I kind of realized that, it kind of was just like, well, if I need her to read this, then it's not right yet. So I don't really need to make her read this. I just know that I need to fix it. With The Worm and His Kings, probably the last thing she read. I've read stuff she has read, or I should say, last thing she has read that hadn't already been accepted for publication. She has, after something's been accepted for publication, she will then read it sometimes. But I really don't, we don't really do that as much anymore because I've kind of just realized that needing to ask her is a warning system that I know I need to do more with this. So I'd run ideas past her, but honestly, that's really just to kind of see what she thinks about it, is less because whether I'm going to do it or not.
It's interesting. Brennan, kind of skipped past you, man. So do you have an answer?
No, I was just thinking that you're lucky to have Tara to transcribe for you into
Yeah,
your
that's a
phone.
lot.
Yeah, it's nice, and I bet she does a really good job. I mean, I do the same thing. I use my Notes app on my phone, but I always make the same terrible mistake of trusting myself to interpret what I meant later. And
Yes.
Oh, I hate that.
yeah. And then I look
Oh.
at it later, I'm like, what on earth could I possibly have meant by this? This is
I do that so
no.
much. I have one
What?
on my phone literally right now that just says Mate Treks, like Star Trek, but Mate Treks, and I do not know, like, what was I thinking? There's nothing else. There's no other information. Like, I don't know what that means. Is that something I saw on the internet, or is that a story idea? Who knows? It's a surprise.
And that's one of those things that I've tried to get better at with note taking. It ends up translating sometimes into the stories itself, because I'll have written something down and I've written a dialogue line down, but I won't have written the tone. And so I'll come back to it. It's like, wait, does that mean this or this? And I realize like I need to take notes that indicate what I meant.
What's the most important element for maybe there isn't one, but do you have an important element that you mostly focus on? Like there's some writers that it's all about atmosphere first, some are characters.
It's different for every story, I would say.
Okay.
Different. Honestly, sometimes some stories start because character A says this and character B responded like this. Another story will because like I want to write somebody with this fatal flaw. Another time will because like I have an imaginative idea. It's any story can have a different level of importance for a particular element of it.
Is there a specific thing that you struggle with when writing? Like, is there something that you're aware of, like one of your, I don't know what it's called, but something that you know that you do that you should not do, maybe that you have to like edit out or something every time?
I probably would say in the past there have been, but as we grow as writers, I think that we both learn to overcome those things. I've been very lucky to work with so many editors. And so when your stuff is getting edited regularly, when you're seeing like, okay, this is coming up, blank is coming up in multiple short stories. Like, okay, I know one. I had been kind of clipping words sometimes here and there at the ends of sentences, not in the sense of like it was missing, but just because like character A went this way and character B followed behind. That would be the end of the sentence. And a lot of editors were adding like behind her afterwards. Like, okay, I need to stop clipping it there and just make it clear with the pronoun because this is an issue. Just little things like that. So you add that over time and over lots of stories, and it's just like you get a feel for what your weaknesses are. So you grow out of those and you probably develop new ones. So I'm sure there are things I do right now that I'm not aware of, but I do know about the things I used to do that I don't do anymore. Like filler actions, like, character nods, like have that happening too many times. You want to have each of those little things matter. So like, okay, I know not to fall to that so much, but as far as like what's current, not really.
I like that. I think it's like kind of like an educational thing too. So each time you get feedback back from somebody, you're learning a little bit more, and it's making you a little bit stronger as a writer,
yes.
So that you can bring those lessons to the next thing.
That's one of the more fortunate parts about having like so many short stories in publication is just that because of all those different editors, it's been a lot of different input and over a short period of time. So I've had that benefit.
For sure.
Yeah, and I would say, as a newer writer, I enjoy patting myself on the back when I, can recognize something that I've had picked out, like you mentioned clipping sentences. But, an instance of passive voice, an instance of using the word then for the 343rd time in a 5-page story. When I can kind of look over my own work and be like, oh man, you are better than that. And then taking it out and just realizing that I'm not there yet, but I'm growing. And, like you said, and you certainly have, a lot more experience than I do. But like you said, I'm sure there are things that I'm doing right now. But as far as, fatal flaws, that amount of submission, the amount of work you've done, and the amount of feedback you've gotten on them has really helped you just become a better writer. And that really goes back to that whole idea of collecting rejections. If you're not working towards that and constantly, writing new stuff and bettering yourself, then you don't end up with that sense of I'm growing, is how you put it. And I love that.
I think the hope, not just as writers, but as people, is that our journey of learning and growing, never stops.
No, one of my favorite, and I probably have told this before on the air, but one of my favorite music quotes is a classical cellist by the name of Pablo Casal turned 84, maybe 5-6 years ago, and they interviewed him and they said, what's it like? You're 84, you've been playing cello for like 70 years or something like that. And he said, I think I'm starting to get the hang of this thing. And it's that's what it is. You can apply it to music, you can apply it to writing, or you can just apply it to being a human being.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Oh, sorry, that was a Patrick segue. Actually, there was another story I wanted to ask you about. I had the privilege to read an early copy of We Are Wolves, featuring a story by you, by Miss Cassie, and by a bunch of other just wonderful authors. And
I can't wait to see the whole thing.
It's the one I read didn't have everybody's in it, but the overall product, I think it was just shy of 200 pages, and it's fantastic. I mean, I'll tell you right now, we're close enough to December for me to say that's going to be one of my top collections of the year. It's really, really special. And the introduction that Gemma put in there, oh my gosh, I can't wait for everybody to read it personally. So anybody who listens to us regularly is probably already getting sick of me asking this, but I was really intrigued by the fact that your story, The Curse of She Part 6, The Final Girlfriend, which is a hell of a title, by the way,
Thank you.
it is in second person. And I wanted to know, is that something that you've worked with a lot, or is it something you were kind of experimenting with for this?
It's definitely been something I've done more recently, more often. When my collection, Unfortunate Elements of My Anatomy, comes out next year, there are three second person stories in that. And I worried, okay, it's 3 out of 18 stories. Is that too much? But then I kind of just kept writing them because there are stories that I really feel they can't work another way. I definitely think there's occasions where it's kind of a little gratuitous, but like a lot of the time, the ones I see are just like, no, you couldn't do that in first person. You couldn't have done that in third person. It had to do it this way. So it's, to answer the question, I guess, it's one of those things where I'm just like, yeah, I've been doing it. I've done enough of them that I felt confident doing something as strange as that one.
Mm-hmm.
And I've done a couple since then as well. My story for Twisted Anatomy is also second person. And
that's the anthology with Lillian, put together by Lil and George, right?
One. Yeah, mine's done. Well, I don't know if I'm supposed to say. They have an interesting way they want to handle that. It's done as certain advice column type of way, so it's like you can't really do something like that without it being second person.
That's a smart idea. Yeah, fuck it, I'll say it. We talked to Lillian. We're gonna have her on next year. We can't wait. I mean, like awesome. the anthologies that is just all females. It's amazing. Like I love this. I love being able to read all these books because they kick ass. And Brennan will say it often. I'll echo it. It's true that there's so many amazing female authors that are quite frankly better than guys, and it's enjoyable. I love it. I want to see who's gonna continue with certain subgenres, who may end up getting movie deals, because eventually quite a few of you are. I mean, there's too many good stories.
We'll have to see.
Yeah, I know that's a huge thing, but so let's go to, unless either one of you have anything else, I would like to ask Hailey what she is currently reading.
Go for it.
Hailey, what are you currently reading?
Well, like I said, I just finished Mongrels by Stephen Graham Jones.
Mhm.
Let's see, I'm in the middle of Children of the Fang by John Langan, his recent short story
Ooh.
collection. I'm reading Places We Fear to Tread, that came out from Cemetery Gates Media, which I have a story in, but I wanted to read everybody else's stories. Let's see. Reading a poetry collection, let's see, Woman by Ash Watson. And there's something else. I was about to start Isola, which is a graphic novel, or I should say trade paperback by Brennan Fletcher. And
Oh, okay.
Carl Kirsch. I'm not sure if I'm pronouncing that right. And then I'm going to be starting listening to the audiobook for Wonderland by, I'm going to mess up the name, I think, Zojistage. Is
I'm
that how
not sure how to
I'm
pronounce.
Okay, I don't like keep messing up people's names.
Well,
I'm going to be
that's
starting
definitely.
that next week.
That's all right. That sounds like a neat, diverse list right there. How about you, Cassie?
I'm reading Halloween Season by Lucy A. Snyder.
Nice.
Yeah, Raw Dog Screaming Press sent me a copy of it, so I've been saving it because I got it actually like a month and a half ago, but I wanted to read it right before Halloween because of what it is. So yeah, I'm reading that, and then I'm also reading Worst Laid Plans and Places We Fear to Tread also. And I actually, because I knew we were doing this, I started both of those with Hailey's stories. So, yeah, and they're both good so far, so I'm excited to keep reading them.
Aww.
Yeah. What about you guys?
Brennan.
Yeah, real quick, Hailey, I would like to add in, I'm psyched to speak to another reader who apparently needs to have like 10 books going at once.
Yeah, I mean, I'm trying to be. No, I'm not. I'm not trying to be better about it. Let's be
Yeah,
fair.
that's just something you have to say. I
Yeah.
also am trying, but I'm not really.
I really try not to read too many short story collections and anthologies at the same time because it gives me anxiety. But I do want to like read a novel or novella at the same time, read a poetry collection at the same time, have an audiobook at the same time, have a graphic novel. So it's just like as long as they're different from each other, I'm good.
That's perfect. Yeah, I like to, same thing. I like to have a collection going. Because I feel like if I, need to read something because we're talking to somebody, I can put a collection aside or skip around if I absolutely need to, without losing the thread. But I am reading, and by reading I mean started like 2 hours ago, Zero Saints by Gabino Iglesias.
Yay.
It's so far so good. I just finished Coyote Songs, oh my gosh, I think yesterday. And that was one of Cassie's You Need to Read This Now books, and I can see why. I loved that book. I really, really loved it. Easy 5 stars. And Zero Saints has that same kind of well, it's his voice, so I'm really excited to see where that goes as well. How about you, Pat?
Yeah, I'm just reading Gabino's 2 books to prep for his episode next week. Coyote Songs and Zero Saints. He just starts off the bat like, all right, we're gonna start with kick in the head to this guy. Gets thrown in the trunk. I'm not really spoiling it because it's on like the first page, but it's awesome. The way he describes things too is just I don't know. I don't know how else to say it. It's different. It's neat. It's very action packed. Okay, another awkward segue. Guess we're Inkheist today.
No,
I'm not sure if I'll
I wanted to do just a small call out that we have 7 minutes before Hailey has to go, I think.
Go ahead.
So for pacing, I just wanted to let us
No
know
problem.
so we can end on time.
Go ahead.
I didn't have a question. That was it. That was just me giving you guys a warning time. I was just telling you guys 7 minutes to go. Chop, chop. Let's go.
Oh, okay. Well, any final thoughts or questions to Hailey, Cass, or Brennan?
I have a quick one. You mentioned that you have a book with Rooster Republic coming out next year. Now, I don't know if you can even tell us anything about it, because I don't believe the title's even been announced yet.
They're waiting on that. We're kind of like doing each little bit in pieces. I've got 2 books coming out next year. My first short story collection will be coming out from the 7th Terrace. It's called Unfortunate Elements of My Anatomy, and that'll be out in spring. And then, the book with Rooster Republic is my body horror novel. They're doing things very, like, we're not announcing the title yet. We're going to then announce, I guess they're going to do that and then kind of just do everything in stages. It is mentioned briefly on an interview with Nightworms, where it's just like a log line, essentially. A woman finds growth inside her, and there are people who think that they should have some say about that. So the very blandest and most boring way of describing the book. But I'm not really sure what I should be saying at the moment. So just that it's a body horror novel. That's the subgenre I'm jumping to with that one. The publisher described it as Cronenbergian, which is, that's an adjective we're using now. So I'm happy to roll with it. I think that when you say that and it's horror fans, they know what you're talking about.
Yeah.
Yes.
Absolutely.
Yep.
So I just want to confirm then, I don't know if you leaked this on purpose or if this was already explicitly stated, but it's a novel then, so not a novella, it's a full length.
It will be my first novel. I should be making a bigger deal out of that. It's my first novel.
That is a big deal.
Yeah.
Cue the balloons.
Woo!
And is the editor Sarah Tantlinger? Am I saying that last name correctly? Does anyone know?
I believe so.
Okay.
No, she is not. She was the editor for Not All Monsters, which was an all women anthology that came out this year. I believe Nicholas Day will be editing.
Oh, that's awesome. That's a huge deal. It's your debut novel, and you got a readership. So that's exciting.
Not only that, but how exciting is it that they're putting out a hardcover version of it? I'm excited, and I'm not even you.
I'm very excited. Especially, it's been fun seeing the releases this year with the Not All Monsters anthology, with Sarah Tantlinger's new poetry collection. And I'm looking forward to K.P. Kulski's debut novel, Ferris Flesh.
I've heard good things about that one from the people who have gotten like early copies.
Yeah, Sarah. I know Sarah got to read it. She's been.
I think hers review is the one I saw. Yeah.
Yeah, she's been raving about it / bragging about it enough that I'm like, I want to read it. So yeah. I'm looking forward to that. I've got the other ones, but it's just like, it's very exciting. I'm very happy to be working with Rooster Public's, / Strange House Books. It's going to be 2021 is going to be exciting, and I've got more short stories coming out. It'll be busy.
I was gonna say 2020 was exciting. If you're a Hailey Piper fan, it already sounds like 2021 is shaping up, and it's still 2 months away if we, survive that long. So, I want to remind everybody that The Worm and His Kings is out on November 15th through Off Limits Press, which is going to be about 2 weeks by the time that you are hearing this. There's a ton of great stuff coming out next year, and I hope that when you have a release date on that novel, I hope you'll come back and talk to us again. We'd love to have you.
Yeah, that'd be awesome.
Yeah,
absolutely. In the meantime, where can people follow you?
I have my website, www.haileypiper.com, but you'll get more frequent updates on Twitter with Hailey Piper Says, and people want to go to my Insta, which is much more manic or disorganized, I should say. That's Hailey Piper Fights.
Excellent. Hailey, thank you again for joining us tonight. It's been an absolute pleasure.
Thank
Cassie,
you so much for having me.
Of course, yeah. Anytime, literally anytime. Just let us know and we'll have you on. We'll make time for you. Cassie, thank you so much for joining us. It is absolutely always a pleasure to have you on.
Thank you for having me. It was fun.
And Pat, thank you for being a lovely co-host. And thank you for not reading the last 3 pages of Hailey's book. I was afraid you were going there.
Oh, no.
Live on air. I don't
Yeah,
want to spoil it, but what if I just read the last 3 pages?
Yes, I apologize, Hailey. I'm a bumbling dumbass.
Oh, no, you're fine.
Can we keep that in the episode? Don't edit that.
Oh, hell yeah. Yeah, Hailey, it's been a pleasure. We love your books. You're a real delight to talk to. So, yeah, seriously, anytime. I know I'm repeating Brennan, but bumbling dumbass over here.
He's gonna make that. Brennan's gonna make that his ringtone or something.
Close us out, Cassie.
Wait, is there a specific closing that I'm supposed to do?
No, just say bye.
Oh, goodbye, everybody. Thank you. Woo!
All right, have a good night, everyone.
Thank you, Hailey.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.
We are in your mind. We are all around. You are now leaving Deadheads.